It's going to be so hard for Legacy Auto to compete for three reasons. One, they don't have the fleet, click like Kangado. Two, they don't have the technological know-how to even complete a lot of this work. And three is they don't have the resources to build out a Cortex-like supercomputer cluster and the technological know-how to be able to plug that into their vehicles and train the models. So this is likely just going to ultimately end up in them licensing it from companies like Tesla.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gigacast. I'm your host, Gav Blacksburg, here today with Omar Quasi, Sawyer Merritt, and Farzam Misbahi. And we are going to be talking about the most in-demand topic when it comes to Tesla FSD, full self-driving. It's come so far in the past several years to the point where you can take entire drives without even touching the wheel. It's mind-blowing. So here today, we're going to dive into the intricacies and what is yet to come. Omar, I love watching your videos where you show the world that this is possible, right? Just by putting a camera in your car and letting it drive you places. Let's kick off with your thoughts on how FSD has changed the world beyond even just driving and where you see this going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's changed the world quite yet, but it is incredibly nice to use. I mean, yeah, I post some videos of this on YouTube, just sort of getting in the car. You tell it where you want to go, you push a button, it'll pull out of the parking spot, drive on city streets, drive on highways, and then park when it gets there. So I've literally gone entire days now without driving. Just last week, I was in Los Angeles, I pushed a button, it took me to Silicon Valley, and I never touched the wheel. And there's no other system in the world that can do this. I think it's really sort of underappreciated that Tesla has actually created the most advanced self-driving system in the world. The narrative these days is that, oh, they're so far behind, Waymo's ahead, they're already driverless. But you look at the launch in Mexico and Puerto Rico just this week. They're now in 4 regions. There's no other self-driving system in the world that's in more than one country. They're live now in 4 countries. And when you see some of these latest versions that are rolling out, I think for the first time it's getting easier and easier for people to believe that they're going to reach an unsupervised service this year. So I love supervised FSD. Honestly, it's so nice. It's been raining here in LA. I had to go to my friend's house. You just push a button and it takes you there flawlessly. But that's nothing compared to that moment where it crosses over and is safer than a human. It becomes exponentially more useful. So the moment where I think it really starts to change the world is coming, and it starts this year. It's going to go from a nice to have to, I think, something that people can't live without.
What do you guys think from like a societal standpoint, the impact it'll have on travel? Because I imagine one of the biggest reasons we don't like driving far is because driving far sucks. It drains you because you have to pay attention to the road. You got to watch out for crazy drivers or this and that. I do wonder if humans will be willing to and start traveling much farther and be willing to take 8-hour drive, whatever it ends up being in a robotaxi world. And so I wonder if we'll see more movement around the US than we did before.
Yeah, I think so. I think the first thing we'll notice is the addressable market for getting from point A to point B affordably is going to expand dramatically as the technology matures. I think that's going to be like the first thing that happens, right? It's like people will have to decide, okay, do I want to own a car and take on the risk, the liability, the maintenance, the dealing with the parking, and so on and so forth, all the different things, or am I going to utilize a rideshare service that I know is going to be very cheap from a per mile perspective because there's no driver involved, right? And the unit economics of spitting out that specific unit are very low because it's cost no more than 20 grand to make that, let's say that 2-seater point A to point B machine. All of a sudden your price per mile plummets to like owning a Corolla or less, right? It makes a lot of sense. And then as the technology gets even more mature, then that price goes even lower. So the question becomes, okay, how many people that just skip out on moving around, all of a sudden, boom, they have access to it. And what happens to regions that don't have great infrastructure, like let's say the bottom half of the jurisdictions in the United States or wherever in the world whose economies are, there's a lot of friction to get the economy booming because there's not enough people to get to those places to do work. When you lower the cost of transportation, all of a sudden you open up the doors to a bunch of people that are able to take part of those economies. I think it's like it has a lot of the downstream effects of having self-driving technology on a cheap to manufacture car that can do that are super profound on in a bunch of different ways. I feel like that would be the first one, but I mean, then you're talking about redoing the layout for cities. You're talking about that whole thing is like, why take a plane ride? Why spend more time getting to and from the plane than being in the plane when I can just be in the car that's going to drive me around and I can do literally whatever I want. And it's in the private space and I'm comfortable. The whole equation changes.
Well, it's that piece you just hit on, right? It's getting to the point where we can literally do whatever we want. And I think that there is some misconceptions potentially around FSD right now and what you can and can't do when you're inside of the car. Because right now, I mean, you can't do whatever you want, right? There's eyes essentially watching you from the cameras. You have to have your eyes on the road. You used to have to touch the steering wheel a certain amount of times. Omar, maybe you're best to talk to this because you've been utilizing FSD for a long time. How has that adjusted over time? And when we get to the point where we can actually just do whatever we want?
Yeah, I think Sawyer makes a great point, which is really probably the number one reason we don't drive more is because we have to pay attention. We have to be on the road. We can't do other things. So right now there's a camera that watches you and makes sure you're on your phone because the system can still make mistakes and you have to take over. But it's really becoming kind of a formality. I got 2 strikes the other day just because it's gotten so good that I do start kind of checking my phone. And it does seem kind of superfluous that, it's enforcing so hard this no phone rule when the software is really getting better and better. So you are seeing it get to that point. And I think really for people, when you take away that restriction, it's just as simple as turning it off. Just like they turned off the requirement to hold the steering wheel, they're going to turn off the cabin camera requirement. And when you have that unlock of, okay, you can use your phone, you can work, you can do whatever you want, I think really, the amount people travel shoots up, the amount of supercharging revenue Tesla generates shoots up, the utilization, the number of megapacks they need, everything in their core business, just transporting people around, it goes up by an order of magnitude. Just because if your car can drive itself and you can do whatever it wants, it really becomes like a mobile living room. What's the difference between really sitting on your couch and watching TV and sitting in a Cybertruck that's driving you around wherever, and you can work from there, you can relax and enjoy some scenery, go somewhere. It really is a paradigm shift. I mean, the implications for real estate, for where people live, it's enormous. And people have been talking about this for a long time, for maybe 10 years now. But we're now getting to a place where we have 8 million driverless rides in the United States a year with Waymo. That number is about to double and triple and quadruple. And it'll change transport forever.
One thing I feel like a lot of people don't think about is in a robotaxi autonomous world is parking. And I was talking with someone about this the other day. Is like, I think the median percentage of land dedicated solely to parking in major cities is like 25%. And if you have a bunch of robotaxis, you don't need to park them in the city. You can send them out. And so what do you do with all this like extra land that you don't need for parking anymore? Like you could build more buildings or, recreational spaces or green spaces. It really starts to make you rethink the city from a fundamental design standpoint.
Yeah, there was this one thing that I heard about. I think it was UPS. It was one of the logistics companies, the 3PLs, that was doing like shipping, transporting goods from one place to another. And I think they were partnering. It was when Amazon was scaling their business or whatever. I forget what it was, but basically the problem was the carrier UPS or whoever that was incurring a tremendous amount of costs by parking the plane at the airport in the hangar, waiting for the stuff to come, just like parking. And then they're like, okay, hold on. So do we pay the fees to wait at the airport, or do we just fly around, and just wait in the air until we're ready to go? And it's the analogies there. And it turns out that flying around and waiting to be ready to go is cheaper than just plopping down and just waiting for something to come. And so in a driverless world, I mean, planes are very different because, you have to land them and they have to go up and stuff. But in a driverless world, the utility of that car, it becomes so much greater, right? To the point where James Dama brought this up when we were talking to him, and this kind of blew my mind, is like, if you think about the function of having a self-driving vehicle in say, peak times, when something is about to go down. Like we went to a Metallica concert a year or two ago in Dallas. And trying to get out of the Metallica concert was a madhouse because it's insane. It takes 1,000 years to get an Uber, and you have to walk like a mile out to be able to even get one. So the reason why that is number one, there's not enough drivers around to deliver people around, and number two, the economics behind staging all those vehicles beforehand for people to come out doesn't make sense because you need people sort of like those people need to make money. But when you have a self-driving vehicle, like this is sort of the opposite spectrum of what I discussed before. When you have a self-driving vehicle, the running costs are so low because there's no human. You could also just plop all those cars at that event center a few hours before people come out, and it costs you like, what, 5 cents of just running energy to keep the car warm. And then the second the concert's over, everybody comes out, and there's enough cars to take everybody out, and then boom. And then that entire process got so much better. So you get a twofold improvement. The service to the customer becomes significantly better because your waiting costs have plummeted. And then you also get the secondary effect of, because you don't have a person in the car, you can do whatever you want with that unit. And it transforms the layout of your cities, to your point. It's crazy. I mean,
I think
the improvements.
I think the parking thing is really interesting. And you remember at the 1010 event, Tesla showed kind of these, green areas around Dodger Stadium that are filled with parking. And it really is true. Because parking right now is dominated by humans need to park close to where they are so they don't have to walk very far. Now, if you have a car that can actually go and drive a few miles and stop somewhere else, or even go home or go wherever, you don't need to have that parking spot right next to Dodger Stadium, right in the middle of downtown, or right in that high value area. I mean, think about the housing that could be built, all the space you're sort of reclaiming. We've seen with LLMs, the world really change in terms of how people do work. But this is going to be the first time that I think we see AI really transform the look of the world, where you see things change in your city that just wouldn't be possible without AI. And that's pretty exciting to think about as this technology scales.
One other thing I feel like we should touch on is this Uber discussion, because a lot of people say, oh, of course, like Uber is going to be putting Tesla on their platform. Tesla's going to want to be on Uber's platform. But from my perspective, why would Tesla need Uber? Tesla's not some small startup that, needs exposure that Uber could bring on their app. Tesla has the ability to do their own robotaxi, their own app, and the whole ecosystem basically on their own at a low cost. So, and we're kind of seeing this already. We saw some news yesterday that they're starting to write in some code for their app for like robotaxing, that you can rate the cleanliness of like the robotaxi when you pick it up. So I feel like Tesla's just better off doing this all in-house, just having people download their app, use that. And I don't think this is going to be such a huge barrier for people. I think a lot of people assume, well, there's 100 and something million people that already use Uber or whatever the number is. They're just going to want to use the Uber app. They're not going to want to download the other app. But if the Tesla robotaxi is cheaper than the Uber rides, people are going to have no problem downloading the Tesla app. Do you guys agree or disagree?
100%. I've gotten into public fights with my dear friend Gary Black. Shout out Gary Black, friend of the channel, all that good stuff. Him and I love that guy to death. I really do, but we disagree on this so much. He's an Uber investor, and so of course he has to defend his position, right? So like the analogy that's given, or the reasoning that's given for Uber, it's like, well, they have a ton of customers, and like you said, it's very sticky. They're it's already on people's phones, and people can already hail a ride. And you get better utilization of that car if you put it on Uber's platform, because that's where all the people hailing the ride already are. And one of the things I also saw was like, well, it's like McDonald's. Like, do people go to the McDonald's app to get a cheaper McDonald's food, or do they go to the Uber Eats app to get McDonald's instead and pay the premium? I'm like, yeah, but you're misunderstanding the entire premise of this. Uber Eats, you get variety. You get a ton of variety for the food. You have 1,000 different options. Uber, like the actual driving app, and I know they have like Uber, Uber XL, so on and so forth. What percentage of people are actually going to Uber's like, I wonder what car I can hail today? It's like, no, get me from point A to point B, and I'm willing to pay the premium because it's better than going in a taxi. That's literally the only value proposition. So it's like, okay, cool. So to your point, if Tesla's like, okay, we don't have a driver involved, we own the entire vertical, we have the app already. So the Uber CEO put out that there's already 150,000 Teslas on the Uber network. They should just let us run FSD on the Uber network. It's like, no, what Tesla should do is say, okay, now you can go on our platform, and then we will let you make money by putting your car on the thing, and then your time gets freed up to do whatever else you want, and we'll give you a nice cut of that, right? And then Tesla can go to market at a significantly cheaper price than Uber because there's no driver involved. And then think about the mess that Uber has. If they want to put the Tesla car on their network, they have to make it price competitive to the rest of their offerings, because if they start making it significantly cheaper than the rest of the cars, their entire thing crumbles. Their entire business model crumbles overnight because now they're not putting their drivers to work, right? It's like, I don't know. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
It feels like that's always been the long-term play for Uber, even from, I remember the company going public and all the years of losing money hand over fist and finally getting profitable. But it felt like everyone always saying the end goal here was to get to where there was no driver in the car. That was the only way that Uber was going to be a significantly profitable company. Is Tesla basically just undercutting that now, or just providing instant competition to that? It sounds like you guys don't think that they're going to be collaborators in this, but rather competition.
Yeah, I just don't understand the forcing function for Tesla to go on Uber when they already have an app and they can undercut Uber by 25, 30, 35%. I don't get it.
Well, and with Uber, like if you choose like the economy option on Uber and you go up to like Uber Black, it tends to get better and the higher, more expensive options. But with Tesla, in my opinion, I've sat in the robotaxi. I did a short ride in it. I feel like it's the best experience for the lowest cost. That's something you can't necessarily do at Uber, because you got to go to Uber Black if you want the best experience. Whereas Tesla, you're going to get the best experience, better than anything I think that Uber can offer for lower costs, and maybe even their economy options, which is like best of both worlds. So why wouldn't someone just download the Tesla app at that point?
I feel like sneaky.
I think with Uber, the key takeaway, and it's been an interesting discussion with Gary Black and even Bill Ackman getting in and saying he's initiated a position in Uber.
Yeah.
The thing about Uber is that one thing I can tell you with certainty is that the market for human-driven rideshare is going to go to zero. It's going to be a rounding error. People are not going to use human-driven rideshare because autonomy is a better product that's cheaper. Just yesterday, my friend was taking an Uber over to my house. They said, oh my God, this guy's breath kind of smells. He's not driving the best. And that...
We're talking about you or the driver?
The Uber driver. And I mean, I think really this is the problem. You get kind of an inconsistent experience. Sometimes they're a good driver. Sometimes you get a nice car. Sometimes it's not so nice. And Waymo doesn't quite go to her house. It's like one street away and the geofence ends. It won't pick her up. And it was raining. So two options that aren't really that good. I think with Tesla, and Sawyer mentioned, we're now seeing in the mobile app, people who've torn the mobile app apart say, hey, we're seeing the rideshare network in here. They're starting to actually push the code for the rideshare network, which isn't that surprising given that they're supposed to be launching in just a few months here, that we're starting to see signs of that. But this is really, really explosive for Uber. You know, Dara Khosrowshahi is a little bit worried about this. And he said, look, you don't want to be competing with Elon and Tesla. We want to get them on our network. But Tesla's going to vertically integrate. What motivation do they have to pay Uber 25%? And it's interesting kind of seeing Uber play the defensive here. They're trying to position themselves as a company that is, you know, the autonomous rideshare network. They did a deal with Uber to be the exclusive provider in Atlanta, not using the Waymo app, using the Uber app to call a Waymo. And they're basically washing Waymo cars and maintaining them to get that exclusivity deal, which is not really, I think, a glamorous future for them. They announced a deal with Cruise saying, hey, we're going to have Cruise cars on our network too. We'll have all autonomous cars. And just a few weeks later, Cruise ended up shutting down. So I'm not sure it's really a great strategy. I'm not sure what value they provide to the autonomous car provider. And when you look at the actual Tesla app and they show you how you can adjust the temperature, you can save your cloud profile, you can adjust the music, you can personalize it, you can have a card to yourself. That's a better product that they're going to be able to offer at a lower price. So absolutely, it's a huge disruption to human-driven rideshare. I think this is obvious to everybody.
Omar, I can curious to get your take on this. Is like, do you feel like between now and June, when Tesla said robotaxi rides are supposed to start, are we going to see any huge changes or huge updates to FSD in between now and then? Or do you feel like the current version of FSD, we'll just see some small iterations, but by and large, what's out now is ready for prime time?
It's not quite ready for prime time, but it's getting damn close. So, it's at a place now where it can drive you for hours, 5-10 hours without intervention. There are still, a few things here and there, but the safety critical stuff's getting very rare. What they're going to launch with in June or December, whenever they launch, is going to be actually FSD 14. So there's some major updates that are coming, in particular, the 3x larger model. This is going to make the driving much more human-like, handling the emergency sirens by audio, destination options. You can see a lot of these improvements in the upcoming improvements here, but they're really in the home stretch in terms of getting the software ready for unsupervised. And the next few updates that we're going to see, hey, Chuck Cook actually saw some cars circling his neighborhood, so maybe we'll even get that update with the 3x larger model this weekend. And at that point, I think we're going to see why they have so much confidence in launching the rideshare service.
I have a lot of still questions on these pieces, but I do agree with what you guys are saying. And to be honest, the more we're talking about it on here, the more it does seem like the concept that is Uber is going to become one of those really outdated things. It's kind of like, okay, we used to get into cars with complete strangers that we had no idea who they were. They could be like eating their dinner while they're driving us places. The music is theirs. The sound quality, the whatever's going on in the car is theirs. And then we switch to this. And it's almost like the move from, I don't know, we used to like wash our clothes by using a rag and rubbing them. And now we put them in a washing machine. And it just like does all the work and it's a whole different experience. So the more you guys are talking about it, the more bullish I get on these pieces.
Yeah, now it's your car. It's not riding in someone else's car. It's your car.
Yeah,
I think people like privacy, and that the Cybercab's going to be that. So you're just in there by yourself or with someone else, you don't have to worry about some random driver.
So that's like the craziest thing, I think. I think you said, Omar's like, most people can see how this is going to play out. I don't think so. I still feel like there's a segment of the people that are studying this that are stuck in the whole, well, the riders are on Uber, and like it's almost like they don't understand the multifaceted wins that you get from a self-driving vehicle, and the privacy one's by far the biggest one. By far the big.
I think they're scared to trust a machine. I think that's still where like most of the fear comes from, and the reluctance to accept the idea is that people are just scared to have no control or not have another person have any control. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the big pushback that I get.
I agree. Here's the thing. That's the fear before you've tried it. You imagine, oh my God, it's going to be this self-driving car. I remember the first time we took my mom in a driverless cruise car in San Francisco years ago. And she was so scared. She's like, oh my God, we're getting in this driverless car. We get in, she's relaxed, she's recording. What you actually find is that you're going to be scared to get in a human-driven car. Yeah. The self-driving car is so good at driving. It's so consistent compared to the Uber driver. The Uber driver, sometimes you get a good driver, sometimes you get a bad driver, sometimes they're driving crazy. That autonomous car is driving the same way every time. Yeah. For women, a huge concern for them is getting in the car with some random guy, especially at night.
Huge.
My fiance doesn't like to use Uber for that exact reason. She just feels uncomfortable doing it alone.
It's a huge thing for women. And, we're talking about 50% of the population here. The demand, when you sort of remove that, we're talking about safety, crashes. One thing that a autonomous car is not going to do is kidnap you, assault you, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think really once people once they get used to it, very quickly, I mean, talk to people who have switched to switched to Waymo from Uber. They mention all these things. Oh my God, it's so nice having the car to myself. And me and my friends can just talk shit. We can say whatever. We can say stuff that we wouldn't say in public because we've got that privacy. We're not worried about the human driver. It really is just a better experience. Talk to people in San Francisco and they'll tell you why Waymo has now surpassed Lyft to become the #2 rideshare service in the city.
And let me throw something in there too, Gov. Like, it's like, okay, that, and it's cheaper. And it's cheaper, right? And so if it comes, so okay, so even there, let's say, okay, even if you give me all these great benefits, the privacy, the comfort, the vibe, the luxury, the personalization, and the cost, I still don't trust the damn thing. I was like, okay, cool. So would you rather take an Uber to the airport for $100 or this for $50? I bet you people be like, okay, wait, hold on a second. You tell me you're saving $50? At some point, that equation is going to flip. And we talked about something very similar with the humanoid discussion. I think you brought this up, Gav. You were like, hey, like the forcing function is going to be the cost. The forcing function is going to be the adoption based on how much it costs the consumer to adopt this or how much money they save. It's going to be the same exact thing here. Plus, you get all the other benefits. You're not going to get some rundown Lada from the 1980s Russian-made Soviet vehicle that's going to take you around, at 50 cents per mile long term. No, it's going to be a private, comfortable, personalized vehicle, all for you. And it's cheaper than anything else.
I don't think people understand. Like, for the people that haven't experienced a Cybercab in person or sat in it, it has more room than any other Tesla. It's pretty wild. It's the smallest Tesla, but it has an insane amount of legroom. The cabin feels very spacious. It's a small car, but it does not feel cramped. It's the best experience.
Can you talk for a second in regards to Cybercab versus Robovan and usages and everything that we're discussing?
I mean, yeah, obviously the RoboVan is for hauling large amounts of people, so that'll mainly be for city areas. I did sit in it. It's quite massive inside. But you could think of all kinds of applications: package delivery, food trucks, medical, service vans. So there's all kinds of applications because it's really low down. It's huge in there. You could outfit and customize it really any way you want.
And this is the really cool thing about Tesla. They've got this whole vehicle lineup, everything from the Cybercab to the Robovan to the Semi, to deploy these AI models onto. And that's huge. I think what Sawyer said is so true. When you sit in the Cybercab, it's the smallest Tesla. It requires the least battery, but it actually feels the most spacious. You get in there, the doors open for you. You've got this big screen. You can watch movies. You can play games. Compare that to your standard Uber experience where you're sitting in the back of a Toyota Corolla with, some Indian guy. He's got his gym shorts in the back seat.
His name's Omar.
It's a dramatically better experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Go
ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a different topic question kind of off this. Go for it first.
So the interesting thing about the Robovan, the Robovan, whatever you want to call it, the toaster on wheels, I'm mind blown that they actually went with that design, but whatever. I do think, I can't remember if we talked about this on Gigacast before, but I brought it up on my channel multiple times. What this long term, I believe, will sort of lead us to is a airline model where Tesla, I think, is going to be in a situation where they're going to manufacture these boxes at millions of units per year run rate, whatever it may be. And once the regulation catches up and the technology catches up and more people adopt the technology, now you can start customizing these interiors for a bunch of different type of use cases, right? It's not just point A to point B like Sawyer said, or like transportation, but I don't know, maybe you'll have a a limo style or a sleeper cab or a workbench, you know what I'm saying? And then the interesting thing will be, will Tesla take that on or whoever makes that, or are they going to outsource that?
Yeah, I would say they'd probably go the police model where Tesla manufactures it, but someone like Unplugged Performance actually does the upfitting. So they probably would outsource it, would just be my guess, just to simplify production and stuff. But I could be wrong.
I agree. I think it's going to be like a Boeing, Airbus. They make all the planes, and then you have 20, 30 airline providers that customize the plane to try to rip you off as much as possible.
But honestly, if you take a look at the Tesla gallery site where they have the images, they have some really interesting concepts for what you can do with this vehicle. I mean, This is, I think, more of a concept stage than any other vehicle right now. But you look at, them showing school buses, large vehicles. There's so many different use cases for this type of large vehicle. And I think it's really just going to be an open space for people to design whatever they want. They showed people having like a mobile food truck where you can actually come in and order food in there and it can move around, a school bus, so many different use cases there in the gallery.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah. The one question I had, and I figured like people that are listening might hear about this because we're talking about a few different of the self-driving platforms. I'm just curious right now what you guys see as the best tech in these areas. Are they all using similar tech now? Because Waymo, of course, they've got like these big cameras on top, and then Tesla, you've got different camera placements, and there's undoubtedly going to be more competition coming into this area. I got really entranced with Tesla probably around 2018, I would say, was when I started really leaning into things and like, reading these articles of Elon sleeping on the factory floor after 100-hour work weeks. And they were also exploring LiDAR still at the time, before I believe that they just decided that they weren't going to use LiDAR at all. And I'm just curious if you think that where the tech is now is the optimal place, or if there's going to be more advancements within tech to other pieces that get added on to enhance FSD. Just curious from you guys who've really studied it.
I think the fundamentals are there. Like, I think the vision approach is the right one. I know a lot of people disagree with that, and they think there needs to be a bunch of radars, LiDARs, and whatnot. But I think Tesla will continue to upgrade its hardware and stuff. Like, we're going to see hardware 5. I think Elon said that would bring a 10x improvement or something versus hardware 4. So we'll see that. But by and large, I think they mostly have the fundamental structure of what they need to deliver full autonomy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say the second best in the United States is definitely Waymo. But when you look at Waymo's technology, it's very different. I mean, you can just look at the car and see all the stuff sticking out. They have an approach where they map the whole city, and they've got LiDAR, they've got radar, they've got all these sensors on the car. It's a much more spatial approach. And honestly, I think what Elon and Karpathy did here, going with the pure vision approach, is really going to go down as a legendary bet that paid off extremely well. People said it was impossible to drive a car with just computer vision. Nobody expected them to get where they are today. And it's kind of counterintuitive because you think, okay, having these lasers where I'm shooting the laser out and finding exactly where everything is, that's how I'm going to really understand what's happening around me and have great self-driving. But it turns out self-driving isn't really about that. It's not just about knowing what's in front of you. It's about seeing what's going to happen in the future. It's about that guy who's standing on the curb, and is he going to cross the street or is he going to stay there? That car that kind of looks like it's veering over, is he going to change lanes or is he going to stay there? And it turns out that deep learning is really the key to cracking that problem. Having a huge data set and training on a GPU cluster to create a model that can sort of make those predictions very accurately. And having a large data set, because you're a vision-only system, is really conducive to that. And that's why if you come here in Los Angeles and you take a Waymo and you take Tesla FSD, you'll find that FSD is actually smoother. It's actually more comfortable. With the Waymo, you're going to see more harsh braking, more kind of sketchy moves.
Can I throw a question out there? Okay, so with the assumption that Tesla's vision-only approach and using their end-to-end neural net sort of thing where it's training compute plus inference on board, and the inference computer is what sort of executes against the driving, right? They basically upload the AI code to the inference computer, and the inference computer knows how to drive the car around. So if we saw the DeepSeek developments from the last few weeks, we saw that, hey, like you can come up with a pretty close model to what your competitors are doing, let's say in a lot of different areas, and you can open source that and upload it anywhere, right? How much of a moat is Tesla's approach to solving self-driving? Like, do we think that there is a risk of Chinese competitor coming in, I don't know, stealing their freaking their weights and then just uploading it online or something open source, or somebody developing something similar? Like how do you think about that?
I think unless a Chinese competitor has a large fleet with that technology built in, they're probably going to have to rely on synthetic data to train whatever model or system they're doing, right? That's why Tesla has a huge advantage, I think, long term in scalability versus Google's Waymo, is because Waymo, I think, has 700 to like 1,000 Waymo robotaxis on the road, but Tesla has 7 million plus vehicles worldwide that they can gather data from. That's just something Waymo can't do. So that's why I don't think Waymo has a scalable approach. But the Chinese are really impressive. What they do, they can do a lot with very little. So theoretically, yeah, it's possible, but I just don't know where they would get the data unless it's synthetic, unless they have a huge fleet gathering that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the blueprint for self-driving is kind of out there now. All you need to do is collect millions of hours of driving footage, get a huge GPU cluster, and, train an end-to-end model. Easier said than done, obviously, but it just requires, billions of dollars of capital, time, a large fleet, but anyone can do it. And in time, over the next 5 to 10 years, others will all copy Tesla's technology, not necessarily steal the weights, but they'll adopt similar approaches. Just like you have iOS and Android, everything in technology, anything good, people want to copy it.
Yeah.
But I think the moat for Tesla is not necessarily going to be just being the only ones who can train a self-driving model, but it's really that vertical integration we've talked about. They train the model, they make the chips, they run the rideshare network, they design the vehicles. Like, even in this video about the new Model Y, they talk about the little cut in the body panel that is moving airflow over the camera to clean it. So now they don't need extra hardware to clean it. That level of vertical integration, I think, is going to let them deliver the lowest cost per mile. And that's what really matters. If you've got, let's say, BYD plus Mobileye plus some other consortium of companies, and then you've got Tesla, I think Tesla's going to have the best product, the best vertical integration. And there are really network effects here. As you have the best model and people are using it more, it gets even better. It learns faster. It gets really hard for the other models to catch up.
It's going to be so hard for legacy auto to compete for 3 reasons. 1, they don't have the fleet collecting data. 2, they don't have the technological know-how to even complete a lot of this work. And 3 is they don't have the resources to build out a Cortex-like supercomputer cluster and the technological know-how to be able to plug that into their vehicles and train the models. So this is likely just going to ultimately end up in them licensing it from companies like Tesla.
In that same vein, it seems like by being first, Tesla's also done kind of a talent draw where the people that are the best to work on things like this, because Tesla has the money to pay them as well, have all come to Tesla to work there or on an associated company, XAI, whatever it is. So you kind of have that talent already in the same place, which I assume is like 30% of building something like this is the right people.
And I think the Elon factor, there's probably the biggest one. I think Elon being the face of the company and the leader is the biggest magnet of the talent. Because Elon is really the one that sets the vision. He was the psycho that said vision only back in 2017, 2018, whenever it was, like way farther, like whatever, like Omar's point, when everybody else was saying you're insane for doing this, way ahead of the curve. And then by setting that vision and being who he is, automatically that draws in that talent. I don't know if Tesla can achieve what they did without Elon. I think Elon is like 60, 70% of.
I mean, engineers love to work at Elon companies because he gets out of the way and he just lets you do the work.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes it just takes 2 things. And then I think first of all, by the way, guys, this was an awesome discussion. I think people that are unsure on FSD or don't fully understand the entire concept of robotaxi probably have a lot more depth on it now. There's a ton more that I know we want to cover, and we're going to get to in upcoming weeks for people. I know that there was a $400 million purchase from the government of armored Cybertrucks, which is fascinating. There's a whole Elon Musk, Sam Altman spat that's happening. Doge is going in and making cuts, but for today, FSD was a super important topic. As you can hear us talking about it, it's an entire new line of revenue here for Tesla, and it's going to make a lot come to it. But absolutely with Elon, I think what he does best is, one, for me, and I've always operated this way, and I try to operate this way for my team, the more that you can put in yourself and lead by example, the easier it is to get other people to do that for you, right? If you have a leader that is every single day in the trenches, as they say, in the arena, shout out Chamath, right? That's going to make it a lot easier for you to get people to come behind you and say, hey, they're working a 100-hour work week. I'm down to work a 100-hour work week. We can do this together. And then the other piece that you guys said, which is he's consistently had this vision for what now, decades at this point, right? Where he just consistently hammered on it. Hey, this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to be the one leading it forward. I think it makes it a lot easier for other people to see the vision, because that's where I think a lot of people struggle. They can be super talented coders, engineers, and it can be really hard to see the vision. But when you have one person that makes it their entire persona and then instills it into you, it becomes a lot easier for you to chase that vision together with them, because it's just now clear in your brain.
So
Yeah, and he doesn't give up. At a time when so many self-driving car companies have folded, GM just shut down Cruise. He's been relentless, and they've pushed forward, and as the field is cleared, they remain there. So, I mean, you could listen to us talk about FSD all day, but nothing is going to help you understand it like going to Tesla.com. If you live in the US, Canada, Puerto Rico, and Mexico, go to Tesla.com, take a test drive. All the test drive cars have the latest FSD 13 on them. And, just simply get in the car, punch in some addresses, have it take you home, and just experience it for yourself. Most people who do that just tell me they can't believe what they saw.
Yeah. And even driving it yourself, I think, is always a great experience. So yeah, this was fantastic. If you guys want to see footage of self-driving first person, you can go to Omar's channel, Omar's blog on YouTube. It's a variety of YouTube videos that just show you that. Of course, if you want more content from the Gigacast, please follow, subscribe to the channel wherever you're seeing this video, whether it's on X, YouTube, or a different platform. There you go. Great little video of Omar, or the car driving Omar, I suppose. This will be up on Spotify as well, and in other places, and so much more to come. FSD is a huge topic here. I don't even think we fully fleshed it out, but I think for those that were unaware of its capabilities and what's coming in the future, you're a lot more well prepared now. Sawyer, any final comments on this one?
I think we covered it. I really hope that Tesla and Elon, they deliver on the June timeline. I think we're so used to seeing delays, but I really hope they get it with this one. I'm just expecting that to be Model Ys. I think Franz might have said Cybercab 2 in the Jay Leno interview he did recently. It's probably just going to be Model Ys, but we'll see.
that was going to be my question, actually. If I can, so do you think they'll launch in Austin with Model Y or Cybercab? Because I think it's going to be Cybercab.
I'm still expecting Model Y. I'll be honest. I hope I'm wrong though, because that would be.
Could you imagine if they do Cybercab? It's going to look insane down here.
My only thing is they haven't allowed people, because they've been touring around these Cybercab prototypes for months, and they haven't allowed people to sit in it because they're just prototypes. They don't want to have a lot of wear and tear in them. So that kind of assumes that they're going to build new ones just for this robotaxi launch. I don't know. We'll see.
I think they will launch with Model Y just because you need to be able to have at least a 5-seater and a 2-seater. They have a lot of testing with the Model Y. I think the new Model Y will really be perfect to launch with. I don't know if they'll make it by June, but I think there's a good chance that they make it by December. And, you just tried the latest FSD update. It's getting harder and harder to doubt that they're going to achieve this. So this could be a very big year for the Tesla AI team, one they've been working towards since they started this project years ago.
Yeah, I think this is momentous here with everything they're outlining, and I'm super excited to actually be able to get into one of these robotaxis and make our way around the city and feel it for yourself. Like you said, right? There's nothing like feeling it for yourself that's going to make you believe. You can go to Tesla's website and do a test drive. If you're friends with any of these guys I'm speaking to, you can hit them up on the side, maybe see if they'll give you a ride.
I like the Apple Vision Pro. You can hear about it. It's really cool to hear about it, but it's a whole nother thing to experience it. It's pretty crazy technology, overpriced, way too heavy, but you got to experience it in person.
It's like a Vision Pro, but it actually is useful.
I want a time capsule.
Well, actually want it.
Yeah.
I want a time capsule this episode and come back in 5 years and see how right we were with some of the vision and what were the things that we couldn't even have seen coming that they roll out. I think it's going to be pretty momentous.
Yeah, only post it in 5 years if we're right.
Yeah. It's only when you're right.
All of this footage is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to do it for today, everybody. Thanks for watching the Gigacast. We appreciate you all. We'll be back next week with another episode.